The redhead's Bentley died at 2 a.m. on the emptiest stretch of highway Marcus had ever worked. She wasn't crying about the car, she was crying about something else entirely when he pulled up in his tow truck. And that's when their worlds collided in ways neither could have imagined. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. Marcus Chin had been running Chin's Auto Repair for 6 years, ever since Lisa died and left him with 2 kids and a mortgage that felt heavier than any engine block he'd ever lifted. Tonight was supposed to be simple, a late-night tow call, quick money to help cover Sophia's dance classes. But when his headlights caught the woman standing beside her car, something in his chest tightened. She wore a designer coat that probably cost more than his truck, but it was wrinkled, like she'd been driving for hours. Her red hair fell in waves past her shoulders, catching the amber glow of the hazard lights. Even from 20 feet away, he could see her shoulders shaking, not from cold, from something deeper. Marcus killed the engine and stepped out slowly. 20 years of late-night calls had taught him to read situations fast. This wasn't about a broken car. "Ma'am," he called gently. "I'm Marcus from Chin's Auto. You called for a tow?" She turned, and he saw her face clearly for the first time. Green eyes, swollen from crying, porcelain skin flushed with emotion, beautiful in that way that made you look twice, not because of makeup or styling, but because of something raw and real underneath. She tried to compose herself, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Yes, the car just stopped. I don't know what's wrong." Her accent was subtle, but they're European, refined. Like she'd learned English in expensive schools, but kept her homeland in her voice. Marcus approached the Bentley, a car worth more than most people's houses. "Mind if I take a look? Might be something simple." She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself despite the warm California night. Marcus popped the hood, grabbed his flashlight from his belt. The engine was pristine, barely looked touched. These cars were built to last forever with proper maintenance, and this one had been babied. "When did it stop?" he asked, checking connections. "About an hour ago. I was just driving. Needed to think." Her voice cracked on the last word. Marcus found the problem quickly, a loose battery cable, probably jarred by California's notorious pothole-filled highways. Easy fix, but he didn't reach for his tools yet. Instead, he turned back to her. "You okay?" The question came out before he could stop it. Professional distance, that's what he always maintained. But something about this woman, alone on a dark highway, crying over more than car trouble, pulled at him. She laughed, but it was hollow. "Do I look okay?" "No," Marcus said honestly. "You look like someone who's had the kind of day that makes you drive a Bentley down Highway 46 at 2 in the morning. That got a real laugh, small but genuine." "Is it that obvious?" "I've been there. Different car, same road." Marcus leaned against the Bentley's fender. "After my wife died, I used to drive this stretch almost every night. Something about the empty road, the darkness, helps you think or not think." The woman studied him, really looked at him for the first time. Work-worn hands, oil permanently etched into the creases. Tall, lean from years of manual labor. Kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Not handsome in a movie star way, but solid. Real. "I'm sorry about your wife," she said softly. 3 years ago, cancer." Marcus turned back to the engine. "Left me with 2 kids and a shop to run. You figure it out because you have to." He reached for the battery cable, could have fixed it in 30 seconds, but he heard her intake of breath behind him, like she was gathering courage. "My father died 2 weeks ago," she said. "Heart attack at his desk. He was everything. The company, the family, everything revolved around him, and now they expect me to just step in, take over. Like I can fill shoes that big." Marcus tightened the cable slowly, giving her time. He understood the weight of inheritance, though his had been a struggling auto shop, not whatever empire this woman was describing. "I flew here to get away," she continued. "Bought a ticket to LA, rented this ridiculous car, and just drove. My board of directors thinks I'm in Geneva for meetings. Instead, I'm crying on a California highway like some sort of cliché." "Nothing cliché about grief," Marcus said, closing the hood. "It hits when it hits." He walked back to his truck, grabbed a clean rag from his toolbox. Old habit, his hands weren't even dirty, but it gave him something to do. The woman watched him, seeming to really see him for the first time. "You fixed it already?" Loose cable, 5-second job. Marcus shrugged. No charge. Her eyebrows rose. But you drove all the way out here. Call it professional courtesy for a fellow midnight driver. He smiled, the kind his daughter Mia said made him look younger. Besides, you've got enough on your plate without a tow bill. Something shifted in her expression. In her world, nothing came free. Everything had a price, a negotiation, an angle. But this man, this mechanic with gentle eyes and grease-stained coveralls, was offering simple kindness with no expectation of return. I'm Astrid, she said, extending her hand. Astrid Lindgren, Marcus Chin. Her handshake was firm, her palm soft against his calloused one. You should probably test the engine before I go. Make sure it holds. Astrid slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. The Bentley purred to life, smooth as silk. She left it running, stepped back out. Thank you, she said, and he could tell she meant more than just the car. We've got a 24-hour diner about 10 miles up, Marcus offered. Maggie's Place. Coffee's terrible, but Maggie makes pie that could solve world peace. Sometimes helps to sit somewhere bright when your head's full of darkness. Astrid looked at him, this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere with kindness she hadn't earned, and understanding she hadn't asked for. In Geneva, Stockholm, London, she was surrounded by people who wanted things from her. Her father's fortune, her influence, her connections. But this man just wanted to make sure she was okay. I don't even know you, she said softly. No, Marcus agreed. But sometimes that's easier. No history, no expectations. Just two people who understand what it's like to lose someone who held your world together. A semi-truck roared past, shaking both vehicles. Astrid tucked a strand of red hair behind her ear, a gesture Marcus would come to know meant she was making a decision. Lead the way, she said. Marcus smiled, headed back to his truck. As he pulled onto the highway, watching her headlights follow in his mirrors, he had no idea he'd just met one of the most powerful women in European business. All he knew was that someone needed what he'd needed 3 years ago, a moment of human connection in the darkness. Maggie's Place sat like a glowing island in the California darkness, its neon sign flickering between open 24 hours and ope 24 hours, where the N and H had given up years ago. Marcus held the door for Astrid, bell chiming their arrival into a world of cracked vinyl booths and coffee that had been burning since the Clinton administration. Marcus Chen, Maggie herself called from behind the counter, 73 years old and tough as the steak she served. What brings you out this late? Kids okay? Kids are fine, Maggie. Just helping someone with car trouble. He gestured to Astrid, who looked hilariously out of place in her designer coat among the truckers and night shift workers. Maggie's eyes sharpened. 40 years of running a highway diner had given her a sixth sense about people. She took in Astrid's red-rimmed eyes, expensive clothes, and the way she stood slightly behind Marcus like she wasn't sure she belonged. Booth in the back's open, Maggie said, gentler than usual. I'll bring coffee. And honey, she looked directly at Astrid, whatever's chasing you, it can't follow you in here. House rules. They slid into opposite sides of a booth with duct tape holding the seats together. Astrid ran her fingers along the Formica table, tracing patterns in the scratches. She's interesting, Astrid said. Maggie's good people. Helped me through some rough nights after Lisa. Marcus accepted the coffee Maggie brought without ordering, black and strong enough to strip paint. Fair warning, this coffee could wake the dead. Astrid took a sip and coughed. Oh my God, that's aggressive. Welcome to Maggie's. Marcus grinned. The pie makes up for it. What kind? I shouldn't. It's 3 in the morning. Exactly why you should. Normal rules don't apply at 3 a.m. in a highway diner. It's like international waters for responsibility. That earned him another real smile. Christ, when she smiled like that, not the polite social smile, but the genuine one, she was stunning. Marcus pushed the thought away. She was clearly wealthy, probably married, definitely just passing through his life like a comet. Apple then, Astrid decided. With ice cream. Now you're talking. Marcus waved to Maggie. 2 apple a la modes, Maggie, and maybe brew a fresh pot of coffee. This one might be old enough to vote. As they waited, Astrid studied him. You weren't always a mechanic. What gave it away? The way you diagnosed my car. Systematic? Logical. And your hands, they're workers' hands. But you hold them like someone who once did different work. Perceptive. Stanford Engineering, actually. Class of 5. Designed automotive systems for Tesla for 8 years. What happened? Life. Marcus shrugged. Lisa got sick. Good insurance only goes so far with cancer. Sold everything. Moved back here where her family was. Bought the shop because I knew cars, and it let me set my own hours around treatments and kids. I'm sorry. Don't be. I loved my job, but I love my kids more. Mia's 12 now. Wants to be an astronaut. James is 9. Currently obsessed with dinosaurs and soccer, sometimes at the same time. He pulled out his phone, showing her the lock screen, 2 kids making ridiculous faces at the camera. They're beautiful. Astrid's voice went soft. Your wife too? Marcus swiped to another photo. Lisa at the beach, pregnant with James, Mia building sandcastles at her feet. Yeah, she was. Inside and out. Taught kindergarten. Had this way of making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the world. You still love her. Always will. But it's different now. Less sharp. Like a scar instead of a wound. Marcus put his phone away as Maggie arrived with pie that could indeed bring about world peace. What about you? Married? Kids? Astrid's laugh was bitter. Married to the job, as my father used to say. He groomed me from birth to take over. Languages, economics, negotiation. I speak 6 languages fluently and can't remember the last time I used any of them to say something that mattered. She took a bite of pie and moaned. Oh, this is sinful. Maggie's secret recipe. She'll take it to her grave. Marcus watched Astrid eat, noticed how she savored each bite like she rarely allowed herself simple pleasures. What kind of company? Energy sector. Vague but true. European markets mainly. It's substantial. Substantial. Marcus filed that away with her designer clothes and Bentley rental. Old money or new? Definitely money, but the way she said it, like the weight of it was crushing her, he understood that too. Different scale, same pressure. Must be hard. Stepping into your father's role, Astrid set down her fork. You know what the worst part is? I'm good at it. Really good. I can read a contract in 3 languages simultaneously and spot the loopholes. I can negotiate with Russian oligarchs and Saudi princes. I can make decisions that shift millions of euros with a phone call. But I'm 28 years old. And I've never lived. Never dated someone who didn't have an angle. Never traveled somewhere without it being for business. Never just sat in a diner at 3 a.m. eating pie with a stranger because I wanted to. The words hung between them. Marcus recognized the loneliness in them, the weight of expectation that left no room for self. When Lisa died, he said slowly, everyone had opinions about what I should do. Sell the shop, move back to the city, find a new wife, focus on career. But Mia needed stability. James needed routine. So I ignored them all and did what felt right for us. Simple as that? God, no. Hardest thing I ever did. But you know what I learned? The people who really matter will understand. The ones who don't were never really on your side anyway. What happens next will change both their lives forever, showing that sometimes the most powerful connections happen when we least expect them, in the most unlikely places. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. They talked until dawn crept across the parking lot, painting Astrid's red hair gold. Marcus learned she'd been raised in Stockholm, but educated everywhere. Swiss boarding schools, Harvard MBA, internships in Dubai and Hong Kong. A life that sounded glamorous but felt hollow the way she described it. I should go, Astrid finally said as morning truckers began filling the diner. The rental company will wonder where their Bentley went. Where are you staying? Haven't figured that out yet. Probably find a hotel in San Luis Obispo. Marcus hesitated. Professional distance, he reminded himself. But something about this woman made him want to break all his rules. My shop's just off the highway. There's a decent motel next door. But if you need anything, directions, recommendations, another car rescue, we're easy to find. Chen's Auto Repair? Creative naming wasn't my strong suit. She smiled, that real one again. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. The car, the coffee, the conversation. I needed this more than you know. They split the check despite her protests. Outside, the California morning was already warming, promising another scorching day. Astrid's Bentley looked almost embarrassed, parked next to Marcus's beaten work truck. I'm glad your car broke down, Marcus said, then immediately winced. That came out wrong. No, I know what you mean. Astrid surprised him by stepping close, kissing his cheek. She smelled like expensive perfume mixed with diner coffee. I'm glad too. Marcus watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into morning traffic. He touched his cheek where she'd kissed him, feeling like a teenager with a crush. Ridiculous. She was probably halfway back to whatever European boardroom she'd escaped from, already forgetting the mechanic who'd fixed her car. But when he got back to the shop, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she'd laughed at his stupid jokes, how she'd listened when he talked about Lisa without the pitying look everyone else gave, the loneliness in her eyes that matched his own. You're distracted, his shop manager, Tony, noted around noon. That tow call take all night? Just help someone out. Marcus buried himself under the hood of a Honda Civic, but his mind kept drifting to red hair and green eyes. 3 days passed. Marcus threw himself into work, kids, routine. Mia had a science project due solar system made of styrofoam balls. James's soccer team made playoffs. Normal life, the kind he'd built carefully from the ashes of tragedy. He almost convinced himself the highway encounter had been a dream. Then Thursday afternoon, while he was elbow deep in a transmission rebuild, Tony called out, "Marcus, customer up front, asking for you specifically." He grabbed a rag, wiping his hands as he walked to the front office. Stopped dead when he saw her. Astrid stood by the counter in jeans and a simple white t-shirt, looking nothing like the designer-clad woman from the highway. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, face free of makeup. She looked younger, more relaxed, beautiful in a different way, approachable, real. "Hi," she said, almost shy. "I have a problem with my car." Marcus glanced through the window. The Bentley sat in his parking lot, gleaming in the afternoon Sunday. "Same car? Different problem." She met his eyes. "It runs perfectly, but I can't seem to drive it anywhere except here." The shop went quiet. Tony, who'd been complaining about his ex-wife for the past hour, suddenly found inventory to count in the back room. Marcus's heart did something complicated in his chest. "That's a very specific mechanical issue," he said carefully. "I know, hoping you might have some expertise." She stepped closer, and he caught that perfume again. "I extended my rental. Found a hotel in town. Told my board I'm taking personal time. First vacation in 5 years. And you're spending it in San Luis Obispo? I'm spending it somewhere that feels real. Somewhere nobody knows who I am or what I'm worth or what they can get from me." Her voice dropped. "Somewhere with the best pie in California and a mechanic who fixes more than cars." Marcus set down his rag. His hands were shaking slightly, and not from the transmission work. "Astrid, I know this is crazy," she interrupted. "I know I'm probably making a fool of myself, but I haven't stopped thinking about our conversation, about what you said, doing what feels right instead of what everyone expects. This feels right. You don't even know me. I know you stayed with a crying stranger until dawn. I know you love your kids more than anything. I know you understand loss and didn't try to fix mine with platitudes. I know you charged me nothing for a service call that took hours." She took a breath. "I know. I want to know more." Marcus thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea. She was clearly out of his league financially. She lived in Europe. She was probably rebounding from grief. He had kids to think about, a business to run, a carefully constructed life that didn't have room for complications. But then he thought about 3 a.m. and Maggie's diner, how easy it had been to talk to her, how she'd made him laugh for the first time in months, how she'd looked at his pictures of Lisa without jealousy, understanding that loving his late wife didn't mean he couldn't love again. "I get off at 6, he heard himself say. "Kids have activities until 8, but if you want, I know a place that serves better food than Maggie's. Not better pie, though. Nobody beats Maggie's pie." Astrid's smile lit up the shop. "It's a date. I should warn you, I haven't dated since college. I'll probably be terrible at it." "Perfect. I've never dated anyone who wasn't trying to merge companies with my father." She headed for the door, paused. 6 o'clock. "Don't stand me up," Marcus Chen. After she left, Tony emerged from the back, grinning. "Boss, I don't know who that was, but if you don't take that woman to dinner, I'm questioning your engineering degree." Marcus threw his rag at him, but he was smiling. For the first time in 3 years, he was looking forward to something beyond the next oil change or soccer game. He didn't know that Astrid Lindgren controlled one of the largest private energy companies in Europe, that her net worth had more zeros than his phone number. He didn't know she'd spent the past 3 days fighting her board of directors via video calls from her hotel room, refusing to return to Stockholm until she'd figured out why a California mechanic had made her feel more alive in one night than the past decade of her carefully planned life. All he knew was that at 6 o'clock, she was there, leaning against that ridiculous Bentley in jeans and sneakers, looking like hope in human form. "Ready?" she asked as he locked up the shop. "No," Marcus admitted, which made her laugh. "But that's never stopped me before." They took his truck because the Bentley made him nervous. As they drove toward downtown, Astrid reached over and squeezed his hand. Her palm was still soft against his calloused one, but somehow they fit together perfectly. Neither of them mentioned that vacation rentals don't usually last forever, or that she had a company to run across an ocean, or that he had a life built around 2 kids who'd already lost one parent. For tonight, they were just Marcus and Astrid, 2 people who'd found each other on an empty highway when they both needed it most. The restaurant was nothing fancy, a family-owned Italian place where Marcus knew the owners and the lasagna could cure whatever ailed you. Astrid charmed everyone within minutes, asking about recipes and family histories, genuinely interested in the answers. She fit into his world like she'd always belonged there. "You're not what I expected," Marcus said over their shared tiramisu. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. More? Complicated? You seem so comfortable here." Astrid licked mascarpone off her spoon in a way that made Marcus forget how to breathe. "You know what's complicated? Hostile takeover negotiations, international tax law. This?" She gestured between them. "This is simple. I like you. You like me. Everything else is just details." "Pretty big details. You live in Europe. You probably own companies I can't even pronounce." "I own one company," she corrected, "and it mostly runs itself if you hire the right people, which I'm learning to do." "One company?" She hesitated, then seemed to decide something. "Lindgren Energy Group. We handle about 30% of natural gas distribution in Northern Europe, plus emerging renewable sectors. My father built it from nothing after the Soviet Union fell. Bought up infrastructure when everyone else was running scared." Marcus nearly choked on his wine. He'd Googled Lindgren Energy after she left the shop. The Wikipedia page had made his head spin. Revenues in the billions, political influence across multiple countries, a private company that public corporations envied. He couldn't even finish the sentence. "Rich? Yes. Powerful? On paper? Happy?" She shook her head. "Not until recently. Astrid, I fix cars. My biggest achievement this week was getting a '98 Corolla to pass emissions. My biggest achievement this week was eating pie for breakfast yesterday because I wanted to." She leaned forward. "Marcus, I've dated men with private jets and Swiss bank accounts. They bored me to tears. You know what's not boring? A man who builds solar systems with his daughter and knows every customer's name and stays up all night with a stranger just because she needs it. This is crazy." The best things usually are. They talked until the restaurant closed around them. Marcus told her about coaching James's soccer team, how half the kids couldn't kick straight, but they had heart. Astrid shared her secret dream of funding renewable energy projects in developing nations, how her board thought she was too idealistic. "My father would have hated it," she admitted. "He was old school, profit first, everything else second. But I keep thinking, what's the point of having all this influence if you don't use it for something meaningful?" Lisa used to say something similar. She had this tiny classroom budget, but she'd spend her own money on supplies for kids who couldn't afford them. Said education was meaningless if it wasn't accessible to everyone. She sounds wonderful. She was. Marcus smiled at the memory. She would have liked you. She had a thing about authentic people. Could spot fake from a mile away. When they finally left, Astrid insisted on walking, despite her hotel being 20 blocks away. They strolled through quiet streets, her hand in his, talking about everything and nothing. Marcus couldn't remember feeling this comfortable with someone new. It shouldn't work, the billionaire and the mechanic, but somehow it did. At her hotel entrance, they paused awkwardly. First date rules seemed ridiculous when they'd already shared their deepest losses over highway diner pie. "I should tell you something," Astrid said. "My board is furious. They've scheduled emergency meetings, threatened votes of no confidence. My assistant has called 47 times today." Marcus's heart sank. "You have to go back." "Probably. Eventually." She stepped closer. "But not yet. Not until." Until what? Instead of answering, she kissed him. Not the polite cheek kiss from the diner, but something real and urgent and full of promise. Marcus's hands found her waist, pulled her closer. She tasted like wine and possibility. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Astrid smiled. Until that, I've been wanting to do that since you fixed my car. Just your car? Marcus teased, finding his voice again. Maybe a few other things too. They kissed again, longer this time, until a passing car honked and reminded them they were standing on a public sidewalk like teenagers. Dinner tomorrow? Astrid asked. You can bring the kids if you want. I'd like to meet them. You sure? There are a lot, I'm sure. She backed toward the hotel door. Good night, Marcus Chen. Good night, Astrid Lindgren. He watched her disappear into the lobby, then walked back to his truck in a daze. His phone buzzed Tony, asking how it went. Marcus ignored it. Some things were too new, too precious to share yet. At home, the babysitter reported no problems. Kids asleep, homework done, no disasters. Marcus paid her and checked on his children. Mia had fallen asleep with a book about constellations. James was sprawled like a starfish, soccer ball still at the foot of his bed. This was his life. Simple, stable, centered around two kids who needed him whole. He couldn't afford to get swept up in some fantasy with a woman who lived 5,000 miles away. But as he brushed his teeth, Marcus caught himself smiling in the mirror. For the first time since Lisa, he wanted to be swept up. Wanted to take the risk. His phone lit up with a text. Thank you for tonight. For everything. I haven't felt like myself in years. Now I remember who that island, eh? Marcus typed back. Thank you for walking into my shop and my life. 3 dots appeared immediately. Your life isn't the only one that got walked into. Sweet dreams? Mechanic. Sweet dreams. Oil Empress. That's terrible. We're working on better nicknames tomorrow. Deal. Marcus fell asleep, smiling, not knowing that across town, Astrid was lying awake, making decisions that would change everything. She'd spent her whole life following the path her father laid out. Maybe it was time to build her own road, even if it led to a small California town and a mechanic with gentle hands and 2 kids who needed someone to love them. Maybe especially then. The week that followed felt like something from a movie Marcus would never admit to watching. Astrid became part of their routine, so naturally, it scared him. She showed up at the shop with lunch good sandwiches from the French place downtown, not the sad desk lunches he usually scarfed between jobs. She helped Mia with her solar system project, teaching her about gravitational pull with an enthusiasm that made physics feel like magic. She cheered at James's soccer game, loudly and badly, making his whole team giggle when she yelled, "Kick it harder!" at all the wrong moments. She's nice, Mia observed one evening as they watched Astrid and James practice headers in the backyard. Weird, but nice. Weird how? She asks questions and actually listens to the answers. And she doesn't talk to us like we're babies. Mia paused. Also, she has no idea how soccer works. No, Marcus agreed, smiling as Astrid accidentally headed the ball into the tomato plants. She really doesn't. Are you dating her? Marcus turned to his daughter, seeing Lisa's direct gaze in her 12-year-old face. Would that be okay? Mia considered this seriously. Mom's been gone 3 years. You're allowed to be happy, Dad. She would want that. Sometimes kids saw things with devastating clarity. Marcus hugged his daughter, blinking back sudden tears. When did you get so wise? Tuesday. There was a special at school, but the real world kept intruding. Astrid's phone rang constantly, board members, lawyers, executives who couldn't understand why she disappeared. She took the calls, but kept them short, a new steel in her voice when she told them to handle things themselves. They're going to force a vote, she told Marcus one night. They were sitting on his back porch after the kids were in bed, sharing a beer and watching stars. Either I come back and play CEO properly, or they'll try to push me out. What do you want? I want this. She gestured at the quiet yard, the modest house, the life that wasn't glamorous but felt real. I want simplicity, connection, purpose beyond profit margins. But I also have 8,000 employees depending on me. Pension funds, contracts. My father built this company to be his legacy, and I'm sitting in California, falling in love with a mechanic while it potentially burns down. The words hung between them. Falling in love. Neither had said it out loud before. Marcus set down his beer. Is that what's happening? You're falling in love? Astrid turned to face him fully. In the porch light, her green eyes were almost luminous. Completely, stupidly, inconveniently in love. With you, with your kids, with this life? I know it's too fast. I know it's complicated. I know every logical reason why this is insane. But when I'm with you, I can breathe. For the first time in my adult life, I can just breathe. Marcus kissed her then, pouring 3 years of loneliness and 2 weeks of hope into the connection. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. God help me, but I do. They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other while the weight of reality pressed around them. Love wasn't enough. It never was. There were oceans to consider, careers, children, entire lives built on different continents. I have to go back, Astrid whispered. At least temporarily. Face the board, stabilize things. I know, but I'll come back. I'll figure something out. I promise. Marcus had heard promises before. Lisa had promised she'd beat the cancer. His parents had promised the family business would never fail. Life had a way of breaking promises despite best intentions. But looking at Astrid, seeing the determination mixed with tears in her eyes, he chose to believe. The night before she left, they had dinner at home, all 4 of them. Astrid made Swedish meatballs from her grandmother's recipe, while the kids set the table with their best plates, the ones usually reserved for Thanksgiving. It felt like a family. It felt right. It felt like goodbye. Will you come back? James asked directly over dessert, ice cream melting over store-bought apple pie that couldn't compare to Maggie's. Yes, Astrid said without hesitation. It might take some time to sort things out, but I'll come back. Promise? She held out her pinky. Promise. James linked his small finger with hers, nodding solemnly. Mia watched from across the table, old enough to understand that adult promises came with complications. That night, after the kids were asleep, Marcus drove Astrid to the airport. They didn't talk much. Everything had been said. She'd booked first class on Lufthansa, would be in Stockholm in 18 hours, back to boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions. This isn't goodbye, she said at the security gate. I know. Marcus pulled her close, memorizing the feel of her, the smell of her shampoo, the way she fit perfectly against him. Go save your company. We'll be here. She kissed him one last time, then walked through security without looking back. Marcus stood watching until she disappeared, then drove home to his empty bed and quiet house, wondering if he'd just let the best thing in 3 years slip away. 2 weeks passed. Astrid called when she could, texts at odd hours accounting for time zones. She was fighting, she said, making changes. The board was resisting, but she had allies. Her father's old guard was strong, but she was stronger. Hired new CFO today. She texted at what must have been 3 a.m. Stockholm time. She has twins, understands work-life balance. Revolutionary concept here. Marcus smiled at his phone while changing oil on a Camry. Proud of you. Kids miss you. Just the kids? Maybe someone else too. Good. Because I bought something today. Shameless bribery for Mia and James? No, something else. You'll see. But days turned to weeks, and the calls grew shorter. The board fight was uglier than expected. Stockholders were nervous. A rival company smelled blood and circled like sharks. Astrid sounded exhausted, stressed, pulled in a dozen directions. Maybe this was a mistake, she said one night, voice hollow with fatigue. Maybe I should have stayed in California. You're doing what you need to do, Marcus told her, even as his heart ached. Your employees need you. The company needs you. What about what I need? He didn't have an answer for that. 6 weeks after she left, Marcus was closing the shop when an unfamiliar Mercedes pulled up. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, everything about him screaming lawyer. Mr. Chen? I'm David Erickson from Lindgren Energy Group. Miss Lindgren asked me to deliver this personally. He handed Marcus an envelope. Heavy paper, Astrid's initials embossed on the seal. Marcus's hand shook as he opened it. Inside was a deed. Commercial property in San Luis Obispo, specifically the empty building next to his shop. The one he dreamed of buying to expand but could never afford. At the bottom, Astrid's handwriting. For when you're ready to grow. No strings, no expectations. Just faith in what you can build. All my love, A. There's more, the lawyer said, producing a folder. Miss Lindgren has established a foundation for renewable energy education. She'd like Chin's Auto Repair to be the flagship location for the vocational training program. Electric vehicles, solar installation, sustainable technology, full funding for equipment, instructors, and student scholarships. Marcus stared at the papers. I don't. This is too much. Miss Lindgren was very specific. This isn't charity or pity. She said to tell you it's an investment in the future. Yours, the students, and the planet's. She also said you'd try to refuse, and I should ignore you. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. That sounded like Astrid. Is she okay? The lawyer's professional mask slipped slightly. She's brilliant. In 6 weeks, she's restructured half the company, promoted women to key positions, and pivoted hard toward renewable energy. The old guard hates it. The young employees worship her. Stock value is actually up 8%. That's not what I asked. No, Erickson admitted. She misses you terribly, talks about you and your children constantly, but she's committed to doing this right, making changes that will last. She said to tell you she keeps her promises, even when they take longer than expected. After the lawyer left, Marcus stood in his empty shop, holding papers that could change everything. The building next door could house a proper training center. Kids from backgrounds like his could learn trades that would actually matter in a green economy. He could build something that mattered, something that lasted, but it felt hollow without her here to share it. His phone rang. Astrid, despite it being past midnight in Stockholm. Did David find you? She asked without preamble. You can't just buy me buildings, Astrid. I didn't buy you anything. I invested in a vision. There's a difference. I miss you, he said, abandoning the argument. The kids miss you. James keeps asking when you're coming back. Soon, I promise. The board meeting is next week. Either they accept my vision for the company or they buy me out. Either way, I'll be free to choose my own path. And if they buy you out, you'd give up everything your father built? I'd be giving up his vision, not mine. And Marcus? Her voice softened. Some things are worth more than empires. They talked until she had to go to another meeting, voices bridging the ocean between them. After they hung up, Marcus looked at the deed again. Not just a building, but a statement of faith. Not just a gift, but a promise. He made a decision. If she could fight for her future, he could fight for theirs. The next morning, he called his contractor friend. Remember that building next door I've been eyeing? Turns out I own it now. Want to help me turn it into something amazing? As they sketched out plans for the training center, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since Lisa's death. Excitement for the future. Not just surviving, but building. Not just maintaining, but growing. His phone buzzed. A photo from Astrid's sunrise over Stockholm, her office window reflecting gold and pink. Board meeting tomorrow. Wish me luck. You don't need luck. You have something better. What's that? Purpose. And people who love you. I love you too. All three of you. Always. Marcus smiled, tucking the phone away. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. But today, he had work to do, kids to raise, and a future to build. One that might, against all odds, include a red-haired woman who'd walked into a shop and changed everything. Sometimes love was complicated. Sometimes it spanned continents and tax brackets and completely different worlds. But sometimes, if you were very lucky, it was also simple. Two people who made each other better, who chose to build something together despite the obstacles. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Stockholm time. In California, Marcus stayed up past midnight, phone in hand, waiting. Mia and James had made a banner, "Good Luck Astrid" in glitter glue, and insisted he send a photo. He'd done it, adding his own message. Whatever happens, we're proud of you. At 12:47 a.m., his phone rang. It's over, Astrid said, and his heart sank until he heard the joy in her voice. They voted. I won. 8-4, with 2 abstentions. The old guard is out. My vision for the company stands. Astrid, that's incredible. The best part? I negotiated a remote CEO arrangement. I'll need to be in Stockholm quarterly for major meetings, but day-to-day operations can happen from anywhere with good internet. She paused. How's the internet in San Luis Obispo? Marcus sat up so fast he knocked over his water glass. Are you serious? Dead serious. I'm restructuring everything. Promoting my deputy to COO, she'll handle European operations. I'll focus on expanding into renewable markets in the Americas. starting with California, specifically with a certain training center I've heard about. When? I have 2 weeks of transitions here. Then I'm on a plane. Her voice softened. If you'll have me, if the kids are okay with it, if this isn't all too crazy. It's completely crazy, Marcus said. And yes to all of it. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood at the airport with Mia and James, holding a different banner. This one said, "Welcome home, Astrid," in the kid's handwriting. James bounced on his toes. Mia tried to look cool, but kept checking the arrivals board. There, James pointed as passengers began streaming out. And there she was. Red hair unmistakable, pulling a single suitcase, looking tired but radiant. She saw them and her face transformed, pure joy replacing travel fatigue. James broke free from Marcus's hand, running full speed. Astrid dropped her suitcase and caught him, spinning him around while he squealed. Mia followed at a more dignified 12-year-old pace, but her hug was just as fierce. Then Astrid looked up at Marcus. 3 months of video calls, texts, and promises had led to this moment. She was here, real, staying. "Hi," she said, suddenly shy. "Hi," he replied, then gave up on words and kissed her. Right there in the airport, with his kids making exaggerated gagging noises and strangers smiling at the reunion. "Gross," Mia declared, but she was grinning. "So gross," James agreed, then tugged on Astrid's hand. "Did you bring us anything?" "James!" Marcus scolded, but Astrid laughed. "Actually, yes, but it's not what you think." She pulled out her phone, showing them a photo. "Meet Björn. He's a Swedish Valhund. Like a corgi, but Viking. He's been waiting in quarantine and comes home next week." The kids exploded with excitement. A dog had been on their wish list for years, but Marcus had always said they weren't ready. "You bought them a dog?" Marcus asked. "Technically, I adopted us a dog. He's a rescue. Needed a family as much as we needed him." She looked uncertain for the first time. "Is that okay? I should have asked first." He cut her off with another kiss. "It's perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect." "I'm really not," Astrid said against his lips. "I snore. I can't cook anything except Swedish meatballs. I'll have to fly to Stockholm quarterly and deal with time zones and—" "Perfect," Marcus repeated firmly. The next months were a blur of adjustment and joy. Astrid bought a house 10 minutes from Marcus's, refusing to rush, moving in together despite spending most nights there anyway. "The kids need time to adjust," she said. "And so do we. Let's do this right." She threw herself into the training center project with the same intensity she'd brought to restructuring Lindgren Energy. Within 6 months, they had their first class of students, 18 young people learning electric vehicle maintenance, solar installation, and sustainable technology. Marcus taught alongside hired instructors, finding he loved teaching as much as fixing. Astrid ran her empire from a converted office above the center, taking video calls with world leaders while wearing jeans and sneakers. She'd appear in the shop at random moments, stealing kisses between meetings, helping students with their projects, bringing everyone coffee. "Your girlfriend's hot," one of the students mentioned to Marcus one day, not realizing Astrid was within earshot. "She's also your boss's boss's boss," Astrid said sweetly, making the kid turn red. "But thank you." The local paper did a story about the center, focusing on Marcus's journey from engineer to mechanic to educator. They mentioned Astrid only as a partner in the project, which made her laugh. "I've gone from Europe's oil empress to a partner in the project. My father would be spinning in his grave." "Any regrets?" Marcus asked that night. They were in his backyard, watching the kids try to teach Bjorn to fetch. The dog, true to his Viking heritage, seemed to think the ball should come to him. "None," Astrid said immediately. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I want to be." A year after that first highway meeting, they were having family dinner when James made an announcement. "Astrid should marry Dad," he said, matter of fact as only a 10-year-old could be. "Then she'd officially be our mom." The table went silent. Mia kicked her brother under the table. Marcus choked on his water. Astrid carefully set down her fork. "James," Marcus started, but Astrid held up a hand. "Would you want that?" she asked James seriously. "For me to officially be your mom?" "You already kind of are," James reasoned. "You make our lunches. You help with homework. You yell at our soccer games. You just don't live here all the time, which is weird." "Out of the mouths of babes," Mia muttered. Astrid looked at Marcus. "He makes some excellent points." Are you proposing to me through my 10-year-old? Marcus asked. God, no. When I propose, it'll be much more romantic, probably involving Maggie's pie. She winked at the kids. But maybe it's time to talk about what we all want this family to look like. The kids excused themselves with suspicious speed, leaving the adults alone. Was that planned? Marcus asked. The kids? No, but I may have been thinking about it. The marriage thing, the moving in thing, the official family thing. Astrid took his hand. I love you. I love them. I love this life we're building. So maybe James has a point. Astrid Lindgren, are you proposing? I'm proposing. We propose to each other. Somewhere between now and soon. When it feels right. She squeezed his hand. What do you think? Marcus thought about the woman who'd cried by her Bentley on an empty highway. The billionaire who'd chosen love over boardrooms. The partner who'd helped him build something bigger than either of them could have managed alone. I think, he said slowly, that Maggie's does make excellent pie. She laughed, loud and bright. Is that a yes? That's a yes to all of it. The proposal, the marriage, the house, the kids, the dog, the business, the future. Yes. 6 months later, they married in Maggie's diner at 3 a.m. Just family, a few friends, and Maggie herself, who cried through the entire ceremony. They'd wanted simple, meaningful, real, and nothing felt more real than the place where they'd first truly seen each other. Astrid kept her name professionally, but hyphenated personally, becoming Astrid Lindgren Chin in the parts of life that mattered most. She moved in the next day, her belongings fitting seamlessly into the house that had been waiting for her all along. The training center grew. Lindgren Energy's stock soared as the renewable pivot paid off. The kids thrived with two parents who loved them. Bjorn finally learned to fetch, though he maintained his Viking dignity by only doing it when he felt like it. And sometimes, late at night, Marcus would find Astrid on the porch, looking at the stars. No regrets? He'd ask, wrapping his arms around her. Only one, she'd say. What's that? I wish I'd broken down on that highway sooner. 5 years later, at the training center's graduation ceremony, Marcus watched Astrid give the keynote speech to their largest class, yet 42 students heading into careers that would help change the world. The best things in life, she told them, rarely come from following the expected path. Sometimes you have to break down on an empty highway to find where you're really meant to be. In the audience, Mia, now 17 and headed to Stanford for engineering, rolled her eyes at the familiar story. James, 15 and still soccer-obsessed, whispered something to his girlfriend. Their younger sister, 3-year-old Elsa, adopted 2 years prior, sat on Marcus's lap, playing with his glasses. This was their life now. Messy, complicated, beautiful, built from broken pieces and second chances, and the kind of love that transcended continents and tax brackets. After the ceremony, as families celebrated and students showed off their certificates, Astrid found Marcus in the shop, sitting in the same spot where he'd first seen her walk back into his life in jeans and hope. You know what I realized? She said, sliding onto his lap. What's that? That Bentley breaking down? Best investment I ever made. Marcus laughed, pulling her close. Pretty sure that's not how investments work. Sure, at Island, I invested one broken battery cable and got a whole life in return. The ROI is incredible. Did you just make a business joke about our marriage? I did. Still find me irresistible? Always, Marcus said, and kissed his wife in the shop where it all began, surrounded by the life they'd built together. Outside, their kids were helping new students load tools into trucks. The California sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and possibility. Somewhere on Highway 46, other travelers were breaking down, literally or figuratively, never knowing that sometimes the best destinations were the ones you never planned to reach. But Marcus and Astrid knew. They'd learned it the hard way, the beautiful way, the only way that really mattered, by taking a chance on kindness at 3 a.m. and discovering that sometimes, against all odds and expectations, love really was just that simple. Even when it involved billionaires and mechanics, Swedish Valhuns and solar panels, board meetings and oil changes, even when it spanned oceans and merged completely different worlds. Especially then, because the best love stories they'd learned were never about what made sense. They were about what made you whole. If this soul-stirring story of unexpected love touched your heart, if it reminded you that sometimes the best things come from the most unlikely meetings, Click that subscribe button now. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And remember, somewhere out there, your own highway moment might be waiting just around the bend.